Hey there, and welcome to another episode of HomeTech.fm. Jason Griffin here. So happy to have you with us. I am joined, as always, by my partner, Seth Johnson. Seth, how's it going?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm doing great. Excited to be sitting down here with you. We've got a great show to present. I actually took the interview solo. We got a guest interview coming up here in the show with Kent Dickson from Yonomi, a very interesting company that does a hubless hub, essentially. I don't know how else to describe it. They've got an app on their phone that it connects different smart home devices. Very clever design, really interesting approach. So be sure to stay tuned for that. But Seth, you were not able to join me for the interview. I understand you had a birthday in the family.
Oh, yeah. My wife's birthday, we went out to dinner and had a good time. I'm glad you could take over the reins there and do a solo interview. That's a lot harder than just doing a solo show. So thanks for picking up my slack there, man.
Oh,
Appreciate
no problem. No problem. And I understand here we're going to jump into some news stories, but also that you have some big news that you wanted to share with the audience.
Yeah, I'm now working for a distributor out of Arizona called Blackwire. I'm sure if there are Control 4 dealers listening, they know of Kevin over there. And I'm now working with him doing some software development and some helping out on some product development for some really cool upcoming products that he has it's been on his back burner and he's just been too busy to get to them. So I'm going to help him push him through, and we should have some pretty interesting stuff coming out later in the year, beginning of next. I'm not sure how long it's going to take, but right now I've got some some things that were a little more pressing to finish up and take care of for his store. He has like an online web portal or web store, I guess is the best way to describe it. You know, kind of like Snap AV and all the other distributors have.
Right.
So there's some stuff to fix there and get up and going. And then kind of moving on to those cool products that I can't wait to talk about, when they get closer. I'll start talking about them some more.
Yeah. So a new gig. Any plans to relocate to Arizona?
No plans to relocate to Arizona. Yeah.
Very good. So you'll be doing remote work then?
Yeah, I'm actually working from the house, which is different. It's really, really different.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice. I've had the opportunity to do that a little bit over the years and really enjoy it. So that's awesome. Congratulations on that, and definitely wish you the best and keep us posted on things moving forward. Like I alluded to, we've got an interview coming up here. So if you're tuning in to hear that, be sure to stay with us. But as usual, before we get to the interview, Seth and I are going to kick around a couple of news stories here. And the first one that we wanted to talk about is it's official now. I feel like kind of a watershed moment here in the professional home technology space, and that is that Savant is now shipping their new remote straight to consumer. So you can go to bestbuy.com and purchase one of the Savant remotes. So interesting moment, a lot of implications there. Something that we've clearly known is coming for a while now. So not surprising news, but I think definitely worth mentioning.
Yeah, we were kind of joking before we hit record this afternoon that I was wondering if this was going to be the new marketing image, just people staring off into the distance with a blank expression on their face with a candy bar in front of them. So I'm gonna have to Photoshop that in and put it on the website.
Yeah. Go check out to see what Seth's talking about. Go check out the show notes, HomeTech.fm/120. But yeah, it is funny. The thing that struck me about that image is that. Clearly, she's holding the remote up to demonstrate the voice control function, which is definitely something that Savant is placing a lot of emphasis on in terms of the marketing and the functionality of the remote. But she's kind of holding it up right up to her face, and we've been told numerous times during various trainings that we've attended as a Savant dealer. Listeners probably know that I work for a Savant dealer, and most of the trainings that we've attended, they've been very explicit about saying you shouldn't hold it right up to your face when you're doing the voice control. You should be holding it at arm's length in sort of a natural position that you would hold it when you're using a remote. But I suppose that wouldn't make for a very good marketing image.
No, it wouldn't.
But anyways, it is an interesting moment. It's available. You can get the kit for $499, so you're looking at $500. That'll get you the remote, the processor, and an IR blaster. So pretty cool. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out. We definitely won't be able to, as the general public, access the information or know exactly how many of these units they're moving. But I'll be very curious over time to see how much traction they can gain and just kind of keep an eye on the reviews there on bestbuy.com. They'll also be selling through various Magnolia stores as well.
Yeah, and not that it is a good indication right now, but every product they have has gotten a couple reviews, or at least one review, I guess. And every product has a 5-star rating. So take that with a grain of salt, I'm sure. But what I did see was interesting was they have a Savant lamp control wireless switch. I didn't really realize they were coming out with a lighting device alongside the product. I'd always just heard about the remote. And it looks like there's a $99 lamp smart switch, which I think is kind of cool. They're doing a little bit of lighting control inside the product as well.
Yeah, they do have that integrated into the do-it-yourself ecosystem, which I agree. I think is kind of neat and could be useful for quite a few people. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. And if you're interested in checking it out, just do a quick Google search. You'll turn it right up, Savant Best Buy, and you can see the Savant product on Best Buy. It's interesting to me as a longtime Savant guy to see that. And again, I feel kind of like a watershed moment has happened here in the home technology industry, and we'll be keeping a close eye on it. Let's move on here, Seth. We just talked about one story about a new product becoming available, and we got a second story we wanted to touch on here about a rather, in my opinion, surprising discontinuation of a product, or at least apparently that's what it looks like, is that the Amazon Dot, the Echo Dot, is being discontinued. Surprised to see that.
Yeah. Now, if you go to Amazon's website, it is sold out. It says sold out for the Amazon Dot. Where we got this information was a thread on Reddit that said the Amazon Dot had been discontinued, and the person that put on there spoke with customer support, and they said confirmed that Dot was discontinued. I think a couple of other people have kind of reached out and said that it's also true. They're just getting rid of it. I'm not sure if they're going to come in with something else or something different, like a version 2. Or maybe there was something wrong with version 1, or they just didn't know how successful it would be. But kind of disappointing. Like, the Dot was a pretty cool product.
Yeah, I thought so. It was definitely, I thought, fill the void in the market in terms of, the Amazon. For people who don't know, when we say Amazon Dot, we are talking about a product in that Echo lineup. So it is a stationary, always-on voice control device. And the Amazon Echo, which is the big one that everybody knows about, what is the cost on that, Seth? Do you remember offhand? I mean, we're talking a couple $100 at least, right?
The Echo was, I think, running $199. It has come down a number of times, and we're celebrating Prime Day here in America.
Yeah, it's become a holiday.
Yeah, right. So it is. It's come down. I think I saw it as low as like $139, $169, somewhere in there.
So fairly inexpensive, but the Echo Dot was a product that they took the built-in speaker out of it so that you could plug it into potentially like an AV receiver, I suppose, or some sort of external speaker. But, the important thing is by doing that, they were able to get the cost down. So it was a very inexpensive way to get that Amazon Echo functionality into your home, which I thought was very cool. I hadn't pulled the trigger on one, but it was definitely on my radar. Now that my wife and I have gotten into our new house and we're getting settled in, I'm starting to be able to think about some of the technology I want to implement in the house, and the Amazon Dot was certainly something I was considering. So I have to say I was surprised to see it discontinued.
Yeah, I just looked up the price for the Echo. It's $179 right now. I do remember it being $150 at some point. Maybe that was like a super sale that was going on, but $179 is the price for the Echo, and the Dot is no more, unfortunately. So hopefully they come and replace it with something, because I like the form factor. It was pretty cool product.
Yeah, well, and I think it's safe to say this is not an indication of any lack of momentum for the Amazon Echo. I would assume this is just, like you alluded to, product specific. Maybe there was just something about this particular product that they didn't like or hadn't planned on necessarily, and I suspect we'll see something come to the market to take its place at some point.
Maybe they saw this Sonos store in New York.
Yeah, there you go. I was getting ready to take us there, but yeah, let's move to that. Sonos is big, I think fairly big news. I mean, they opened a flagship store in New York City, a retail location, and this thing is no joke. And you got to imagine, with real estate costs being what they are in New York City, they invested a boatload of money into this.
Yeah, and they've got this massive. It's beautifully designed. I mean, when you say boatload of money, you just go scroll through some of the pictures and see.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah, this is an amazing showroom. And one of the things that caught my eye was that wall of sound that they have, where they took their products and kind of like either chopped them in half or just stuck them up on a wall.
Yeah, I saw that.
Oh, that's so cool. Like, it's just, I don't know. Sonos does have a great eye for design. And it really shows when they do something like this. I mean, this every bit about this is great.
Yeah, definitely. And we talked, gosh, I don't know, maybe a couple of months ago about some stories that were circulating, and Sonos was apparently having a few issues and shaking things up a little bit. My take on the story at the time was that it was really Sonos just getting out in front of some of the trends. They had come out and said they're gonna start putting a little bit of focus on voice control. There was a couple other aspects to that story. A few kind of high level people got let go. I didn't read that story and think that Sonos was in any imminent trouble as a company. I think this opening of this flagship store is indication to a certain extent of the company's health. I think that they're clearly a market leader. They are one of the companies. I would say Sonos and Nest are the two companies that at least once or twice a week I have a client or partner, architect, builder, designer, somebody mention one of those two companies by name consistently. So they've done a great job of building market awareness. People know Sonos. People who use it really like it. And so I'm glad to see this. I think Sonos is a great product. I think that building even more awareness and buzz is a good thing for the industry. And so I look forward to, seeing what they're able to do with this location.
Yeah, if you're in New York and you're over in Soho on 101 Green Street, drop in, take some pictures, send them to us, and ask the people there why they can't do AirPlay on Sonos.
Yeah. Oh, man. He had to get the AirPlay comment in there.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, let's move on here. The next story is actually a bit of a follow-up story to one of the things that we talked about last week, which was the acquisition of Nortec by a company called Melrose. And if you didn't catch that story, very big deal. Nortec, obviously a huge company, and you would, in an acquisition story, expect them to be the ones doing the acquiring, but that wasn't the case here. They were acquired by a company named Melrose, and Melrose is really a company that is focused on buying struggling companies and turning them around and, maybe breaking them up into different parts and reselling them. So rough times ahead, I think, for employees of Nortec. It'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. But the story that I wanted to mention this week, which I thought was very well written, a gentleman named Ted Green has a blog that it's focused on our industry, I would say generally, and that can be found at strata-gee.com. Not a blog I think that a lot of people know about, but one that I follow and really enjoy his writing, and he did a good job on reporting this. Apparently, there are lawyers, lining up and falling all over themselves to come after the board of directors of Nortec. They think there may have been some breach of fiduciary duty related to this acquisition, and looks like it's going to be an interesting road ahead.
I'll bet you anything that there's a prostitute involved, and the head lawyer fell in love with her, and shenanigans happened.
2 weeks of Pretty Woman references in a row.
It's a great
That's
movie.
A new record.
It's a great movie. You should check it out if you haven't seen it.
And the first time we've talked about prostitution.
If you're keeping up with your HomeTech bingo cards,
check that one off.
Check that one off. Yeah.
But anyways, yeah, we won't spend a lot of time on that story. We can move on. But I do think it is interesting, and it looks like there's going to be possibly some litigation here, and I don't know what the implications of that will be, but I will certainly be keeping an eye on that story as it develops.
Yep. So, hey, have you seen this Comcast Netflix deal that's going on? Like, Comcast has evidently teamed up with Netflix, and they're offering it as a service that if you start streaming and watching Netflix videos, that it doesn't account against your data cap. Which leads to the only question I think we both had at the same time is like, you have data caps with Comcast?
Yeah, I was very, very surprised. That was the one thing I read the story and I was I did a double take there, but interesting story. Netflix and Comcast are partnering up, or at least they have a future partnership coming. This has to do with Comcast's X1 Xfinity platform, and it looks like what they're going to be doing is offering the ability to do Netflix right off of the Comcast box. So essentially, from a technical perspective, not that big of a story. They've just built a Netflix app into the cable box. Kind of interesting. I mean, we've never really seen that before, I guess. I can't think of one anyways. Typically, it's done through, obviously, a separate set-top box like an Apple TV or a Roku or possibly a built-in...
TiVo did it.
Yeah. Okay, well, there you go. Yeah.
They have everything.
Yeah, well, exactly. But typically, maybe built into a TV app or something like that. So I'm reading the story and I'm trying to figure out what's really significant about that. And the angle, the particular piece I read was from Wired, and it got into a conversation about net neutrality, which isn't a topic that we've spent much, if any, time here on the show talking about. But it's just basically this idea that internet service providers, people who believe in net neutrality, think that internet service providers should have to treat all network traffic equally. Like they can't throttle traffic coming from certain services. And this is something that Netflix has been very vocal about supporting. And the obvious thing for Netflix is that, they are a huge presence. I think I've heard numbers saying that like at peak internet hours, nationwide, Netflix accounts for like something crazy, like 30% of internet traffic. I mean, it's a very significant number. And so Netflix has a vested interest in internet service providers not being allowed to put a limit on the amount of bandwidth or speed at which their traffic is able to move through. And so there's some implications here about net neutrality. I feel like it's, I don't know, kind of a stretch a little bit. I think this really, to me, was not that big of a story. I felt like it's like, okay, well, my Comcast box has a Netflix app. I don't really see how that's a big deal. I was surprised, like you, to know that apparently Comcast is testing a 1 terabyte threshold in certain markets. So a 1 terabyte limit on your Comcast account, where that Netflix will not count to that. And I think some people are questioning, well, if Netflix traffic doesn't count to my data limit, is that a violation of net neutrality, or is that playing favorites? And so I think
I would say it is. I mean, by its very definition, like, they're not throttling Netflix now. They're bringing up, they're giving it an advantage over, say another service like HBO Go or CBS. Unless CBS and HBO come and make the same deal with the devil there with Comcast, they're going to be at a disadvantage from Netflix, because their videos are going to take away from your this magic data cap that has just decided to show up. So, I mean, as somebody who is should be cutting the cord, I said I was going to do it over the weekend, and things happen. But
we're still waiting, Seth.
Yeah, I know it's going to happen. I'm down to the last thing, right?
Saga.
It's calling Comcast is what I haven't done yet. So yeah, it's on my to-do list this week to pop in the new TiVo and get everything up and going. But yeah, it's frustrating because you see things like this and you're like, all right, well, cutting the cord does make sense. It makes a whole lot of sense. You got all these great services out there, and if you want some of the channels back, you can get them through Sling TV and that kind of thing. But it's completely negated. Video takes a lot of bandwidth, and if you're watching a lot of video all day, if that's what you're doing, then you're taking up to that cap that Comcast is invented. It's just I feel like with Comcast and with all these other ISPs is that they have just figured out ways to move the goalposts a little bit further back. So every time you think about cutting them off, they put something else, either a wall or they move the goalpost back or build up a wall somewhere.
Yeah, no, I can see that. I think they're all valid points. I guess my thing with the net neutrality angle of this story is, I suppose at the margin there are potentially smaller streaming services that could be hurt by this, in the sense that you could have a consumer who would opt to use Netflix exclusively because they know it doesn't count towards their data cap, versus maybe trying out some of these different streaming services. But I think that's probably a fairly uncommon occurrence. I think that for the most part, people aren't even thinking about that. I don't know. Like I said, I was surprised to hear that Comcast even had a limit, so that was news to me. I guess if my provider did have a limit, I probably would think about that a little bit. But I think at the end of the day, for most people who are fairly casual users of streaming video, the reason Netflix is the choice for them is just because of the vast number of titles that Netflix has and their pricing model and just that
they've been
presence.
around for a long time.
They've been around forever, and so I think that's why Netflix is crushing it. I don't think that. I guess I just have a question in my mind about how much this net neutrality argument really plays in favor of Netflix. Like how significant is that really to Netflix advantage, or is Netflix is their advantage in the market? You know, it's there whether or not we have these sort of stories, I guess. So I don't know. There's a lot of different angles, a lot of different ways you could look at it. But I do think it is an interesting story from that perspective, and news to me. I hope my provider doesn't institute any sort of limit, but I'm not a big video streamer at this point, so I think 1 terabyte would probably be pretty hard for me to hit, although I'm really not sure. I've never given any thought to how much data I'm using on my CenturyLink account.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Like, how do you even count that? How do you even test it?
I've no frame of reference. Exactly.
I have no idea what I use. I mean, I have a rough idea what I use on my cell phone, because you get that. You know, we're used to that.
Yeah, exactly.
But we've never had this threshold and data caps. At least here in the States, I know other countries bill a little bit differently, and they have data caps and metered services, but. Most of the ISPs here in the States, they just give you a flat rate, and they say, oh, you get the high-speed internet for this rate, and you're supposed to get that, all of the internet, and that's what the net neutrality argument is, and that's the argument. I mean, oddly, Netflix has been so vocal about and getting it, but now that they're at an advantage, they're certainly willing to team up with one of the larger ISPs and get in the net unneutrality.
Having it both ways. Yep.
Yeah.
Totally
Exactly.
That. All right. Well, let's jump into our interview here with Kent Dickson. And like I mentioned, Kent is from Yonomi, and they're a very interesting company, actually based here in my part of the country, in Boulder, Colorado. And they're a smart home app that binds your devices together and gives you a more unified experience. And I will let Kent tell you more about it. Really interesting interview, and I really enjoyed it. But before we get started with that, do want to quickly remind everybody that we have a Patreon page, and want to thank everybody who's become a patron of the show. That's a way that you can financially support us if you enjoy the show and want to back our efforts to bring you more episodes like this. You can do that for as little as $1 a month. Best way to do that is to go over to HomeTech.fm/support. That'll give you some links and some more information. And a big thank you again to everybody who's taken the time to go and do that.
Yeah, absolutely. A huge thank you. If you don't want to support the show that way, there's a number of other ways you can support. You can go over to the iTunes store and drop some ratings over there. Give us a review. That always helps in people finding the show and coming across the show that way. And you can reach out to us and give us some feedback. Let us know what you think, because that definitely goes into what Jason and I are looking at. If you have a good idea for a show and you want to hear us talk about something, please reach out and let us know, because
absolutely,
these summers get kind of slow.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into our interview here with Kent Dickson from Yonomi. Hey, Kent, welcome to the show. How are you?
Very well, Jason. Thanks for having me. How are you?
Yeah, my pleasure. I'm doing great and excited for the conversation. I think Yonomi looks like a very interesting model and a cool product, and I look forward to diving in and exploring that with you. But before we do that, why don't you give our audience just a bit of a personal introduction and maybe some of your background, even going back, possibly prior to Yonomi.
Sure. Well, I am a software veteran. Actually, I'm an aerospace engineer by training, but pretty early on in my career, I got involved in software. and sort of left aerospace to pursue that. And and I've been involved in a number of startups, as you tend to do when you're in the software space. Yonomi is the fourth startup that I've been involved with. And my longest stint was with a company called BEA Systems, who acquired our startup in Boulder called Avitech. And some people, if you've ever been in enterprise software or built sort of high-end web or web services, you may have used a product called WebLogic. And that's really that was our main product line at BEA. And I was a general manager in that group. We grew the company quite a bit and eventually sold it to Oracle in 2008. And that's when I decided that I was ready to do a startup again. And so I joined a startup here in Boulder called Avitech. Excuse me, that was my previous company. A startup here in Boulder called Tendril. And Tendril was an Internet of Things connected home company, really focusing on specifically energy management and how to use connected devices as well as the smart grid to optimize energy use in homes, educate consumers, and get them to use less energy and yet still be comfortable. So it was a pretty bold vision for a startup. We were very early to market. This was pre-Nest, pre-Wemo, pre all of those things. And we helped build a lot of the standards in this area around Zigbee Smart Energy. We actually were building devices themselves, thermostats, plugs, displays, load control switches, and built a cloud platform to, in real time, manage what was going on or monitor what was going on in the grid and manage what was going on in the home. So it was a very exciting, sort of visionary company. We built a lot of really early technology. Ultimately, I think we were too early to market at the time and probably in the wrong channel. But nevertheless, we built some cool stuff, and some good things have come out of that. As an example, some people listening to this show may be familiar with a company that was called Revolve.
Oh, yeah.
Who eventually were acquired by Nest. And Revolve were mostly Tendril expatriates as well. And then IM and a lot of other people have gone on and done other things in the smart home or at Tesla, for instance. I don't want to speak posthumously about the company because Tendril is still around, but pivoted really to doing more smart meter analytics and smart grid analytics rather than control. And those of us who are really interested in the physical things and the controlling spun off and did other startups. Very cool. That's very interesting. I didn't realize there was a connection with Revolve. We had Mike Susi on the show back not too long before the acquisition, and we didn't get any hint of it during the interview, and we were naturally surprised to see that. And so that's been an interesting story with a lot of twists and turns there. And I guess that would probably explain Revolve was a Boulder-based company, and you guys are as well. Is that correct? That's right. We actually are dual headquartered in Boulder and Austin. Got it. Well, as you know, that's my neck of the woods and a beautiful part of the country. And so hopefully you and I can get together and grab a cup of coffee one of these days. But let's get into what we're here to talk about, and that's Yonomi. And just quickly give us the elevator pitch, kind of the really quick explanation. What is Yonomi? Yeah, well, Yonomi is a software platform that monitors and manages devices in homes. And so it takes a number of forms. Really, most people know us for our smart home app. It's a free app that you can download, and it automatically discovers most of your connected devices, depending on what you have in your home, maybe all of them. And these devices come from different manufacturers, different brands, using different technologies, and we just sort of automatically discovered them and allow them to be coordinated together in automated routines or or we can just expose them to be controlled directly through our app, through widgets, or through Amazon Alexa.
Very cool. Well, we're going to jump into much more detail on that, but let's talk about the genesis of Yonomi. Where'd the idea come from, and just kind of who's involved, who's on the team?
Yeah, well, a little bit about who's on the team. I already gave an introduction myself. I have a couple of co-founders, a guy named Joss Schulten and Garrett Madole, both of whom worked in the high-end home automation integrator space.
Oh, okay. Very cool.
Yeah, they both are alumni of a company in Austin called Avaya Estate Technologies, who did a lot of these things, and Garrett too had been with Schneider Electric doing building automation things too. So most of us have been sort of in the automation IoT space for a long time, longer than it's been called IoT, I guess.
Right. Right.
And we all saw something happening. People like to say, home automation has been around for a long time, and of course that's true. But it's sort of been around and accessible to either the very, very geeky or the very, very wealthy, or the intersection of those two things possibly.
Right. Right.
And the interesting thing that we saw happening a few years ago is like, hey, look, there are these fantastic products that are really more mainstream products that you can go buy, bring home, and install. And really, they're very accessible from both a price standpoint as well as a usability standpoint for a mainstream user. Things like Sonos speakers, Nest thermostats, Wemo devices, and the list goes on that were sort of coming to the fore. And we said, well, this is really very exciting. But what's interesting or concerning is that while when you get one of these products, it's pretty easy to use, and you can kind of set it up and do some interesting things. When you get two of those products, well, that's not too bad either. But the more of these products you get, you start to realize that the whole is not greater than the sum of the parts. And as a matter of fact, it's actually less, right? Because suddenly you have a bunch of different things that you have to program, you have to pay attention to, you have to launch apps for, and they don't work in any sort of coordinated way. And we said, that's actually going to suck, especially for a mainstream user. It's one thing for early adopters and techies and stuff. We'll tolerate quite a lot, but my mom really isn't going to put up with this stuff. She's going to say, I've got better things to do than sit around and poke apps all day. So we said that, there's got to be a way to integrate and actually make the whole greater than the sum of the parts, have the technology make our lives simpler rather than more complex. So that's what we set out to do. Our good friends at places like Revolve and Wink and SmartThings were starting to address this problem, but every single one of them, and at the time, as you recall, there probably were 2, maybe 3 dozen companies building these God boxes, right? These smart home hubs to address this very issue. But we said, that's not something that my mom wants to see show up in the house. She's never going to raise her hand and say, I want yet another router-like thing to make my other things work together.
Sure.
So that's really who we were trying to reach, is more of a mainstream market, and make something that was really accessible from a usability standpoint and a cost standpoint. So we said, all right, hardware's out. We're not making hardware. We're not making another God box. We've got to have another way to do that. And so that's where we sort of said, what is in every home and in every pocket is a smartphone. And those smartphones themselves are pretty powerful pieces of computing. And let's figure out how to harness those things and the cloud to sort of make that integration magic happen for the devices that'll come into your home.
Yeah, definitely. And let's go there, because I think that is without question one of the most interesting parts of the Yonomi story to me, is that decision to go with a hubless architecture, and you're not putting another box in the house, and you're doing this all with an app and in the cloud. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on, you touched on some of the benefits there. What were maybe some of the challenges that presented to you guys as a company from a development and ongoing support perspective, that decision to go with a hubless architecture?
Yeah, well, there's a number of benefits, but also a number of challenges, indeed. Certainly, the among the benefits are that, as we stated, everybody's got it. Everybody's got a smartphone, so we can just sort of go to where the users are already. The other great thing about the nature of smartphones is that consumers voluntarily acquire those things. You don't have to sort of make the case for why you need to go spend $200-$300 on another router-like thing. You already were going to buy that thing anyway, so it's already there. But the other fascinating and really important point about smartphones is that you replace it every 2 years. You're probably not going to be very happy if your smart home hub tells you have to get a new hub every 2 years. That just feels wrong. But for some reason, we're very accepting of, oh yeah, it's time to get a new phone. And guess what's in that new phone? Well, there are new radios, there's more processing power, and there's new capability. And so the ability to sort of outpace obsolescence by being associated with the phone rather than with the hub is pretty good. Among the downsides or the cons of doing that is, those smartphones and tablets are mobile devices. They're not always in the home. And guess what? They sometimes turn off or run out of batteries. So they're transient hubs, if you will. So that creates a number of challenges. And then, of course, the other challenge was that, and of course, they don't have every radio in the world. They don't have Z-Wave. They don't have Zigbee. They don't have the Insteon radio in them. And so that, sort of also reframed how we thought about the ecosystem.
Yeah, and that's very interesting that you bring up Zigbee and Z-Wave in particular. Hadn't really thought of that specifically. Is your business model set up just taking into account that maybe those aren't the future of home automation and you're more concerned with things like Bluetooth and Wi-Fi? Or do you think those technologies are going to continue to be relevant? And if so, how do you plan to address that?
Yeah, well, I actually do think that they'll continue to be relevant. Bluetooth and Wi-Fi definitely are giants in the space, and you'll see more and more products that are using those. But there's no question about it that, depending on what product you're designing and what use case you have, Zigbee and Z-Wave, Bluetooth, are all in the conversation. And one may be a better solution than the other. We don't need to really get into it, but there's always considerations of battery life and range and security and various other things. And so I think Zigbee and Z-Wave will have a role to play for a very, very long time. I don't think they're going anywhere. But what we do see is when there are modern contemporary products coming to market that have those, they almost always come with some sort of a bridge. And that bridge may be actually a little router-like thing that you plug into your existing router, or they may be buried in something else, like your thermostat. Of course, that's the route that Nest has gone, which is the thermostat has become the bridge to your they don't use Zigbee proper anymore, it's Thread, but your 15.4 radio bridges to your Wi-Fi network through this sort of Trojan horse thing, which is a thermostat. I think you'll see set-top boxes and video streaming appliances start to become bridges too. So we weren't too worried about our ability to actually reach those devices. We think those bridges are going to be all over the place, and we'll be able to access them.
Great point.
Yeah.
I want to talk about device compatibility and just some more general user experience stuff. But before we get into that, since we're talking about this decision to go with a hubless architecture, I want to touch on a question that I'm sure you guys get a lot, and that is what happens if I'm a user and my internet connection goes down?
Yeah. Well, generally speaking, bad things happen if your internet connection goes down. Not just for us, but basically for your entire life. You're without Netflix for the evening, and that's just going to suck, right?
That's not a good thing. Yep.
And a lot of bad things happen. So it is true that with our architecture, a lot of it, most of it, in fact, really isn't going to work properly if the internet goes out. But I think that's true even with the physical hubs. There's a few of them that can have some level of autonomy when the internet goes out, but they're still going to be kind of limited. They'll softly degrade perhaps, but it will degrade. And in our case, yes, most of the things that you're going to want to do with Yonomi won't work, but I think that's just the nature of what we're dealing with.
Yeah.
When you look at Amazon Echo, for instance, which is a fantastic product, it too isn't going to do anything for you once the internet goes down. But with most physical devices, there is always a fallback. There is always a light switch on the wall. There is always a deadbolt or a keypad on the lock, actually, with Sonos, you're out of luck when the internet goes down anyway.
Right. Yeah. Fair point. And I think it's a conversation that it gets brought up a lot, particularly as we see more and more of the processing move to the cloud. I think it's something that consumers need to be aware of going into the situation, and they need to know about it. But at the end of the day, I also am a realist about it, and I realize that there are so many benefits to moving things up into the cloud that is, by and large, I think where things are headed. And I also think that it's worth making the point that most of us have pretty stable internet connections these days. This is a pretty robust and mature technology. So if you're having a lot of internet outages at your house, and that is a concern of yours as a consumer when you're looking at products, you're probably better off channeling that effort and calling your ISP and figuring out why the internet is dropping so often, because it shouldn't be doing that clearly. So a lot of considerations there, but let's zoom out a little bit and talk about just like I said, some of the user experience. Walk us through that initial setup process if I'm a first-time Yonomi user.
Yeah, well, in the setup process to us, we obsess about it, because we think that those first couple of minutes that you're using the app really are the potentially the trickiest times. It's setup. It's find your devices, get them set up, and figure out how to do automation. And again, because ultimately we think, at least in the long term, the user here is my mom. It needs to be very, very easy. Now, today, of course, most of our users are still early adopters, but nevertheless, we've taken that focus of try to make this as smooth and easy as possible. And so one of the things that we do from when the moment you download the app and launch it for the first time is automatically discover devices for you. It's not an experience where it's like, okay, touch here and select your products from this very long list of 100 different things that it could possibly be. No, we go out and we actually have a variety of ways that we can kind of sniff out which products you have, and then we show them to you. We say, we see you have 3 Sonos speakers and a Harmony and some Nest stuff and an August Smart Lock, and if you grant us the rights to now connect to those things, then we can start making them work together immediately. And we kind of use the next step after discovery and authentication with those things is, okay, we've now created a few starter routines for you. Arrive home, fall asleep, and movie time. Let's say there's a few of those things. Depending on which products you have, we sort of personalize a few routines for you and have those turn on. And then we direct you to this list of recommendations, which is, okay, well, we turned on a few of these things, but there's a couple of dozen other things that you could do with your existing devices. And we've sort of set those up too. We haven't turned them on yet. They just exist as recommendations. You can go review those, select which ones you want, turn them on, customize them if you want. And then you're off the races. For the most part, afterwards, you don't have to do very much in the app. And that's the whole point, is if you can make the Internet of Things basically invisible, but yet useful, then I think we've done our job. And so that's really what we're trying to do. You spend probably 2, 3, 5 minutes using Yonomi out of the box. And after that, yeah, you're going to launch it a few times a week after that. Maybe you'll use widgets. You'll use the app to run your favorites. But a lot of the thing is going to be automated. You'll run them from Alexa. And, the app doesn't have to be in your face all the time.
Very cool. And so it sounds like listeners to our show will be well aware of Seth's general rule of thumb, and it's the can my mother set it up test.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you guys have had that in mind as you were getting things built out. So that's a good thing.
Well, we weren't thinking of Seth's mom, but we were thinking of my mom, and she's a pretty tough customer. So I bet.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I like it. Awesome. Well, you alluded to it a little bit, but let's get specific on what types of devices can I currently control with Yonomi?
Yeah. There's over 60 devices that we work with today. I won't bother listing them all here. They're on our websites. The wildly popular consumer grade connected devices. So that means Sonos, it means Nest, it means Philips Hue, it means Belkin Wemo, LifeX bulbs. We integrate with Wink and many of the products that hang off of Wink, including locks and lights, and Harmony Hub, which is a great way to access the AV stuff, and of course Amazon Echo.
Very cool. Well, we will point our listeners to the list that you referenced on your website of the comprehensive device list, and that can be found at HomeTech.fm /120. What can you tell us about your roadmap for future integrations? Are there any things you can give us a hint at that you're getting excited about?
Sure. We're continuing to work on making the user experience just fantastic, as well as the performance and the reliability. These are all the things that, as a software company, you're never finished. And so we continue to invest massively, all the time in just making the product itself better. And then after that, what we're doing is continuing to expand the list of devices that we support, and that's driven based on, one, popularity, like what are the devices that are likely to show up in a home, and let's make sure that we can support that thing, and two, utility. If this thing if we do go about connecting this to Yonomi, are we adding value to it? Is the whole going to be greater than the sum of the parts, or is it such a niche thing that it's not necessarily all that useful to have connected? So we are always sort of looking at those two filters for selecting new products, and so you'll see us add 2, 3, 4 additional connected devices a month, probably going forward, and that's always exciting. But I won't hint at what those are because we like it to be a surprise, and
Fair
also
enough.
because it changes frequently. We may think,
I'm sure,
here on this particular day in July that these are the top 3 things that we're going to be working on next week, and guess what? Something happens, something comes up, and we make a rapid shift. We're that sort of an agile sort of company, so we don't want to make too many promises well ahead of time. But cool thing that we've seen over the last few months is the amount of excitement that has been brought to the connected home by voice. And Amazon Echo is a brilliant product, and it is created a lot of momentum, I think, for this space, and got a lot of people focused on the connected home, which has been great. And we add a lot of value to Echo and these various other devices, and so that's been good for us. But there are some other voice assistants out there, and more. They're becoming more mature and more sort of accessible for smart home use cases, and we want to embrace all of them. This is the main point about the company is we are 100% agnostic. We don't have a horse in the race. We just want the smart home to be successful. We want users' lives to be easiest, and we're doing all the hard work in the background to integrate all this stuff together. And so as these other voice assistants from very large companies sort of start coming into the home, we intend to embrace those in a similar way. Wearables is another topic that we think is really important. Obviously, Apple Watch and Android Wear types of watches are becoming increasingly popular, and I think those types of wearables will evolve quite a bit in the near future. And we think that those are great interfaces to the connected home that can make things simpler if we use that real estate correctly. And I think there will be other things like gesture types of controls that'll be available as other tech comes into the home too. So those are all the things that we feel like we've got this great software platform that is able to embrace whatever sort of comes down the pike and just amplify the value of it.
Right. And you alluded at some of the larger initiatives there, obviously, with Alexa and voice. Let's talk for a second about some of these other large initiatives like HomeKit and Works with Nest. Where do you see those, I guess I should say, where do you see Yonomi fitting into the smart home of the future relative to these large initiatives like HomeKit and Works with Nest?
Well, we intend to work with all of them. Today, with the dozens of products we work with, as you can imagine, we're working with various technology standards in there, some proprietary things, and that's really what we built our platform to really be able to embrace, is sort of be able to connect to anything. It doesn't mean that it's easy. It still requires some very clever software engineering to make that magic happen. But that really is the sort of, I hate to use this word for regular old people, but a lot of my ex-colleagues know the term middleware quite well, and that's sort of what we've built. So we've built this middleware translation layer that makes all this work together. And so we're very pro standard. We want for Thread and Weave and HomeKit and things like that to be massively successful, for lots of vendors to support them, because that ultimately makes our lives much easier. But I think the truth of it is that there will never just be one. It's not going to consolidate into one standard, not in our lifetime. And so there's always going to be a need for somebody like a Yonomi to bridge all of those things so that the user can really have a integrated home.
Sure. Makes a lot of sense. Let's talk about security for just a second. I know that's always a big topic on people's minds in general, and it's getting a lot of coverage. And I think it's particularly important for a product like Yonomi because you are really, like you said, that middleware layer, and you're accessing, in theory, every connected device on somebody's network. So what are you guys doing to make sure that your users are secure?
Yeah. Well, this we take as our most important, our most solemn duty is to keep our users secure. And it's interesting, the smart home, as we've said, it's this very heterogeneous environment. These products coming into the home from multiple different vendors, and they all implement things differently. Some are, like Fort Knox, and some are pretty wide open. And so, we just embrace those products, whatever they are. We sort of, in a way, take the Hippocratic oath, which is first do no harm. There may be products in the home already that are not super secure. Let's don't make things worse. Let's embrace those things. Do our job to make sure that we're not the weak link in the chain. And that, as a matter of fact, we bring an extra layer of security into it that, we're doing, serious authentication with our users, and we're implementing the highest level of authentication that we can with the individual devices. All of the data that we handle is encrypted, and we do, as a requirement to actually run our service, we do capture some data and store it. And not only is it encrypted, but that also is data that we never, ever share with third parties. Anything that's personally identifiable, we hold on to, and we never sell it, we never share it. If in the future there's a good use case to actually share that among vendors, that will be completely managed by the user. We believe very much that what users care about is security and privacy, and we mean to never betray that trust.
Got it. Very good. Well, we're running a little tight on time here. Let's start to wrap it up. I want to ask one question that's more from a macro or business perspective, and just get your thoughts on the decision of Yonomi to make the app totally free.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that's the other thing that we really believe about users, the user population, is that they expect stuff like this to be free. They'll pay the money for the devices, but we don't think that there's really a subscription service model here. We may be proven wrong in the future. Maybe somebody will come out and suddenly prove that users really want to pay money for this. But we think that accessibility is really important. If we give you an excuse not to use this stuff, then maybe you won't use it. But if we give you every excuse to use it, hey, it's free, it's rich, it's easy, it does some really important stuff, my data is still private and secure, why wouldn't I use this? And so that's the approach we've taken. And we do need to make money. And so there's two primary ways that we make money. On the consumer side, if you're a user of Yonomi, you will see, nobody's ever seen this yet because we haven't launched it, but at some point in the future, we'll begin to occasionally suggest other products that you might want to add to your smart home. And those won't come in the form of ads. They won't be sponsored, where nobody's going to pay us to make that recommendation up front. We're just going to use basically what we've learned about the user to say, hey, you're doing a leave home routine to turn off your TV and your lights and your thermostat. Wouldn't you also like to lock your door? And if we make that suggestion of, we think you should add a door lock, and you appreciate and accept that suggestion and tap on one of the multiple locks that we support, then that vendor will pay us a commission, or a retailer like Amazon might pay us a commission. But that's after the fact, after you've done it, we get a commission for making that suggestion. And everybody that we've talked to, we're very transparent about that. And everybody we've talked to said, that's pretty fair. For a free service that does something useful, as long as you're not spamming me, as long as you're not bugging me with these promotions, I feel pretty good about you making honest to goodness recommendations to me. So that's thing one. The thing two is the software platform that we've built is pretty sophisticated and mature at this point, and we're starting to license that software to other people, like device manufacturers, for instance. and service providers who are white labeling it for their own purposes and their own products. So you might not necessarily see a Yonomi brand on it, but the next product you go buy may actually be using our service on the back end.
Very cool. And just really quickly, is the app available on both iOS and Android?
It is.
Okay, great. Just wanted to make sure we covered that. Well, really appreciate you taking the time to come on and join us. I think it's a super interesting product and business model, and really enjoyed our conversation. In wrapping up here, what's next for the team there at Yonomi?
Well, growth. We're growing. We're trying to execute on adding more rapidly more devices to this, because there's so many great things coming to market right now, and our users are asking for them. And so we're starting to hire so we can increase the pace at which we're adding new things. So that's big for us, and just trying to keep up with the demands of our users. They are very vocal with us, telling us what they love about Yonomi and what they'd like to see us add to Yonomi. So we're listening and responding, trying to make it better every day.
Great. Well, if anyone listening wants reference or any additional information about specific things that we talked about in this episode, once again, you can find that at HomeTech.fm/120. If our listeners wanted to connect with you personally, Kent, or find out more maybe from some of your resources, what would be the best way for them to do that?
Well, our website is yonomi.co, so yonomi.co. That's a great place to go. Learn more about the company, figure out how to contact us, download the app, see our supported devices list.
Very good. Well, once again, I appreciate you taking the time. And like I said, hopefully you and I can get together for a cup of coffee one day soon. And hopefully our listeners enjoyed the interview.
I'm looking forward to it. And thanks for having me, Jason.
All right. Thanks, Kent. Take care.
Take care. Bye.